Sebring. Since 1952, the legendary Florida airport circuit has attracted the most revered cars and drivers in the sports car universe. Through 4.5 decades, the grueling 12-hour race has been a cornerstone of the sports car world. Today dawns a new era. Professional sports car racing is born. 4 classes, fast and sexy cars, famous makers and drivers, great teams from around the world. Sports car racing is changing, but this brutal challenge, the 45th Superflo 12 Hours of Sebring, lives on. Welcome you to the Superflo 12 Hours of Sebring. 6.5 hours of coverage here on ESPN. This scene repeated every March since 1952. The sun rising over the historic old Sebring Raceway. Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Despain. It is a pleasure to welcome you to this classic among the world's great sports car races. We have over 60 cars, drivers from all over the world, ready to challenge round 2 of this Exxon-sponsored, brand-new professional sports car racing series. Can anyone beat the Ferraris? That seems to be the question. The 3 Ferraris here have taken the top 3 spots in qualifying. The famous mark with 10 victories on this racetrack. The cars over the years in the hands of such greats as Andretti, Hill, Surtees, and Jean de Bion. The Ferrari on the pole, well, let's meet the fast guy. No, not Marty Reed, although he'll be pretty quick on his feet covering pit road. He's with the pole sitter.
Well, David, I've been with guys that have tried for 300 laps to get the pole and never succeeded. But Yannick Dalmas in the number 3 Scandia Ferrari managed to pull the trick off with just 12 laps of practice. And Yannick, there's about 240 drivers that would like to know how you did this in just 12 laps of practice.
I'm sorry, I don't understand because...
Somebody's talking to you on the radio?
Yes.
Okay, we were talking about how you had 12 laps of practice and you ran a 1:49.4, 118 miles an hour, and there's 240 other drivers here that wonder how you were able to do that.
Yes, during the qualify, the car was okay. The Team Scandia works very well and the perfect lap. But, you know, it's important for us to start on a pole position. But for me, the important, it's the race, you know. It's important, but I want to make a good result for the race. Thank you.
He drives one of the prototype cars in the field. The bulk of the field, production automobiles, the GT machines, divided up according to horsepower and tire size and weight. The fastest of the GT qualifiers with our other pit reporter, Rick DeBrule.
Just a moment ago, we talked about the new era of sports car. You may be looking at it right here, an FIA sports car. Front engine is called the Panos. I got to tell you, this is an exotic creature. It's got a NASCAR Roush motor, fuel injected. The design, though, for the chassis is made by Reynard. It's really fast. The question is, will it last? This is its first race. Doc Bundy gets the pleasure of starting it. Okay, that's the question. Will this thing go for very long?
Well, we're looking at this thing, Rick, as an extended test, so our plan is to keep it running. We're not worried. We know we got speed. We just want to keep it running.
All right, Doc Bundy plans to keep it running. Right now, we're going to run down to Marty Reed in GTS2.
In GTS2, this team, the Saleen Mustang Fords at Daytona, won the Perseverance Award. They spent more time in the pits than they did on the track, but they finished. And now, Bryce Cobb, you've got the pole, and obviously you've worked out some of those bugs.
Well, Marty, what I'm really happy about is that the first time I ever drove the car at Daytona, I knew clearly it was a class car. It was something that could sit on the pole. No one believed me, but here we are after a few of the bugs have been worked out. But it's still a long race ahead of us, you guys, so we'll have to use the Porsches as a pace-setting example because we don't know how fast the pace is set.
There's one more division, GTS3, and Rick DeBrule's there.
And you're looking at the pole-sitting car for the GTS3 division, the BMW. Last year, BMW led to within the last 20 minutes. Tom Milner, you own the team. You say Sebring owes you this year.
Well, yeah, we left something behind here. We forgot to pack up something, a little trophy. I completely lost my voice. I think it's a good sign. That same thing happened in Daytona, and we won, so we're looking forward to a good race.
Tom Miller and BMW looking forward to it. We've seen all 4 classes. Time to meet the 4th member of our broadcast team.
Key question, after 6.5 hours on the air, will Jeremy Dale sound like that? He's our expert analyst, twice a runner-up at this racetrack. I don't want to hear about coulda, shoulda, woulda. I want to hear about pace, because I think that's the key issue, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. These Ferraris have been very quick. They won here 2 years ago, but were upset last year by the Oldsmobile Riley and Scott factory car, and I think that car is going to have a tough time keeping the pace with the Ferraris today.
If you had to put $5 on it, a little sporting wager up here in the booth, would it go to the red cars?
I think that anyone that makes a wager at Sebring is a little loose up top. It's very unpredictable here, and I think that only time will tell.
It is a very, very difficult and demanding racetrack. 12 hours, the perfect length for the race. It's going to be a great show. Dalmas has the pole. He earlier picked up the check from the Make-A-Wish Foundation for having collected the fastest qualifying time and a new track record. We'll take a break and come back with all the excitement. Exclusive Speed World coverage of the Superflo 12 Hours of Sebring is brought to you by Exxon Superflo Motor Oil. Provides protection that's fast, protection that lasts. And by Virgin Interactive. Get the ultimate in driving games from official sports car GT sponsor, Virgin Interactive. We're back at Sebring. The engines have fired. The cars are on the course. The hair's up on the back of my neck. I'll tell you what, there is no more exciting moment in sports car racing than this. The attack on a 3.6-mile, 17-turn course that's been here since 1950. We've identified a couple of those turns that we think are particularly critical. And Jeremy Dale, I want you to tell me why. First of all, the horseshoe is that.
Yeah, down to the hairpin here. Very narrow part of the racetrack from about 170 miles an hour down to roughly 40 miles an hour. Very hard on the brakes. Great for passing down there in the hairpin.
This was originally an old air base, and portions of the course are still old airport runways, notably those two long straightaways at the bottom of the screen and the hairpin that connects them.
Yeah, 17, the last turn on the racetrack. Very wide here. Tremendous variety of lines. Very hard braking zone, but not in a straight line. As you're turning under the bridge here, a lot of variations in line and a lot of passing there under the bridge.
And those old concrete runways are, in a word, rough. They will beat a car to pieces over the 12-hour grind that is about to unfold. Let's take a look at the Superflo starting lineup, dominated here by the Ferraris. As you can see, they have taken the top 3 spots, with Dalmas claiming the pole and a new track record. Further back, you have your Daytona winning number 16. That's the Riley and Scott Ford-powered automobile. Craig T. Nelson, of course, the star of Coach, along with Darren Brassfield. An interesting mix of WSC cars, the World Sports Cars, the prototype automobile. And then as you get back further, you find the pole-sitting Panos of Bernard Bundy and Perner. The GT1 cars, production-based automobiles ranging from tube-frame silhouette types of cars to actual production cars. The GT2 pole-sitter, we heard from Price Cobb in the Ford talking about pace. And as we look down through the rest of the field, I guess the question in everybody's mind, Jeremy, has to be how fast to go and how early, and how do you make that decision?
Well, I think the advantage for the Scandia team here is that they have 2 cars in the field. So if they choose to, they can send one car out running very quick, very strong, and let the other car loaf along. That is what the Dyson team did at the 24 Hours of Daytona. Looks like we have one car there stopped on the pace lap. That is what the Dyson team did at the 24 Hours of Daytona. The car that ended up winning the race was the slower of the 2. It was the Tortoise. The quicker car, the 16 car, did break in the night, so it's a good strategy.
It's all about reliability. You've got to get it to the finish. It's the old adage in racing, to finish first. You must first finish, and nowhere is that more difficult to do than here at Sebring. We'll be covering this field with a variety of onboard cameras as they come down now for completing the pace laps, the warming of the automobiles, the last of the starting positions there. One of the many Porsches, and now we are told that the car that has stopped on the pace lap is the Panos, the GTS1 pole sitter. wanted to hide, so he got behind that telephone pole. Here's your onboard camera. So much for that, right? The first of the onboard cameras is with Doc Bundy, and Doc Bundy is without power at the moment. I suspect they thought it would run longer than that.
Yeah, this car, Doc, as you heard in the opening, Doc said it really is just a test for Le Mans. Their goal is to run the FIA Championship. Their goal is to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. This is the competition debut for the car, and so you can be quite sure that they will get someone out there, they'll get this car fixed, they'll figure out what's wrong, and they'll get it back in the race. They didn't expect to come here and win, even though they qualified on the pole.
The field will not get the green flag because of the stopped GTS1 pole sitter. The clock, however, the 12-hour clock will start. The race will be underway when they come by start-finish in terms of clock time. The green flag will fall once the course is clear. Let's go to Rick DeBrule.
As Doc Bundy alluded to at the very beginning of the show, this is a very extended test session for them, and anybody who's been to a test session knows it never goes right. They had a hard time firing the car right up on the grid, on the track. According to the team, they say it just died. Right now, they don't know what the problem is. They're hoping it can get around so they can figure out exactly what the problem is and get it back in the race. Let's go down to Marty for another update.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a bad day also for the 92 Mazda. David Loring behind the wheel. He never made it off the starting grid. It would not fire. They eventually brought the tow truck around after everybody literally ran about a quarter of a mile down this front straightaway. He's behind the wall right now. They're working on the car. It's something in the ignition. They cannot get the 92 Mazda to turn over.
Well, without the usual thunder and roar down to turn one, the 12 Hours of Sebring is underway. The clock has started as the three Ferraris come across start-finish. The GTS1 pole-sitting Panos is being pulled off the racetrack, as you can see. You will see a lot of cars stop during the course of this race. The key is to get it back, get it fixed, and get it back on the racetrack, keep it moving. Well, we have temporarily lost one of our onboard cameras. Fortunately, the beauty of television, we have a whole lot more scattered back through that magnificent field. Look at the cars warming the tires as they come down the front straightaway. Here is your defending race champion, Wayne Taylor, Scott Sharp, and Eric Van der Poel, who has an opportunity to make history here, sharing the controls of the Danka Toshiba Olds, the Riley and Scott Mark III. If Van der Poel could win, he will become only the second driver in history to claim 3 straight 12 Hours of Sebring. Let's go for a Ferrari ride. How about that lovely chop top, no top on the WSC cars, and there's the view out the back. This is the team of Andy Evans, Fermin Velez, Yannick Dalmas, who won the pole, and Stefan Johansson, car number 3. Now, this would be the Momo Ferrari. Legendary Giampiero Moretti, who has come to America to race in sports car racing for so many years, will share the driving responsibilities with Didier Taze, Antonio Herman, and Andrea Montermini. Momo, a very, very famous name in Italy. There's the Panos headed back to the paddock area, it appears, in search of what will be rather extensive and serious repairs to get that thing going. Here's your 74 car. This is our old friend Bill Adam and Hans Stuck sharing the driving responsibilities here.
Yeah, and a couple of years ago we saw Hans Stuck in this car in the rain at this racetrack, and he was just spectacular. I don't think we're going to have the opportunity to see him drive in the wet today because it's just a lovely day. But he is always spectacular.
They did have the opportunity to do that yesterday. It rained all day. We'll have radio communication with that STP Porsche 911 Turbo during the course of the afternoon and talk about what's happening out there on the racetrack and get a first-hand view from the drivers. The first Union BMW, the winning car at the 24 Hours of Daytona, car 10, Arberlin, Hessert, Quiros, and Said, the drivers of record, as they prepare for what you heard Tom Milner say at the top is a race in which they figure they are owed one. I love this shot. Last but not least will be car number 76. This is the Team ARE 911, sharing the driving responsibilities. Court Wagner, Kelly Collins, and local boy Gary Blackman, Yokohama Shod GTS 3 entry. A lot of disparity in speeds among the cars here, from the fastest WSC machines to the GTS 3 cars, and that creates a real traffic problem.
Absolutely, and with 67 cars in the field here, you know, I would imagine in about 5 laps or 6 laps, the leaders will be lapping cars, so there won't be a lot of running out of traffic.
You saw the green flag, and that means it is nearly time to go to work. Here they come down the old concrete runway, and the stories are legion about drivers who ran off here in the dark back in the old days, could not find the racetrack, and could wander around out there aimlessly for a long, long time trying to find those orange cones that showed the way back home. It is a fascinating place. So much of the history of sports car racing in America right here in this wonderful repository. It is 10 years older than the 24 Hours of Daytona. This really is the core of sports car racing in America, and the cars are just now making the turn for home and preparing for the green flag. A lap late due to the misfortune for the Panos. Nonetheless, the clock is ticking, and we're kicking off 6.5 hours of ESPN, ESPN2, and ESPN News coverage of this great event. Here on the Ferrari, side by side, off the final turn. It is showtime, ladies and gentlemen, at Sebring as we look for the green to go in the air. We're underway.
And I would not be surprised to see James Weaver in that 16 car get pretty aggressive on this opening lap. It looks like Charles Morgan in the 3 Ferrari, who started on the outside of the front row, has had a horrible start. That may be by design. He may be just stroking, but that's certainly not a great start for the 3 car.
Thomas did such a great job at qualifying, got the drop on the field. Look at him go 4, 5 wide and off into the grass, trying to sort out the early traffic jam. There's so much adrenaline pump at the start of any race, and I would think that part of the trick here is to calm yourself down and remember how long this thing really is.
Absolutely. As you said, the adrenaline is always pumping at the start of the race, and there's James Weaver right on Yannick Dalmas in this opening lap.
Looking out the back of the First Union BMW in the GTS 3 class, back at the traffic that he'll have to deal with here.
And this is down into the hairpin, very tight section of racetrack. He got wide there and got passed by his team car and this 50 car.
The number 6 BMW, Dan Marvin, John Fergus, Derek John Hill, Phil's son, and Boris Said is indeed the teammate to the number 10. Back up front, here's the early battle for the lead with Dalmas, the pole sitter, pursued by Weaver. Shades of Daytona in the early running here. Weaver's car, of course, broke at Daytona, and his teammate car went on to win the 24 Hours and kick off this season. Will he be content to follow? Well, there's the answer to that question as he swoops looking to the outside, a weird line.
Well, James really got cut out there. It looked like, and they've touched on the back straightaway.
Wow.
James really got cut out there on the entry of 15. Yannick must have really overslowed the corner, and then they end up touching on the back straightaway. I'm sure we'll catch a replay of that. It looks like the 3 car has had a tire gone down.
The pole-sitting car appears to be headed for pit road. Weaver came by, made the aggressive pass, and now smoke rolls from the pole-sitting Ferrari. Just 2 laps into a 12-hour grind. Here comes number 3 to the pits, and that deserves another look.
Yeah, and you can see James got a run on him, and there's really no reason that he should have touched in there because there's quite a bit of road out to the left. Maybe Dalmas missed a gear there, but there's really no reason to touch out there. There's plenty of racetrack. Let's go down to Marty Reed.
Well, they are going to top this off, and they'll make a 4-tire change. But the problem is it is the left rear tire. Boy, it is shredded as he made it thirsted around. Tough break. They're going to have to start playing catch-up. And the worst part about it, coming on the very first 2 laps of the race, he's going to have to fight his way through all this traffic because all these GT3 cars are just zipping by us faster than you can imagine. Lost time on that right rear, but he's finally out of here.
A fascinating start here as we take another look at how this all developed. Here is Weaver on the outside.
You can see how much racetrack is available there, and I'm really surprised that they touched there. We'll have to speak to James Weaver when he gets out of the car because something must have happened there that we can't pick up on.
Last year in Le Mans, Andy Evans spun the Ferrari very early in the going. Now here, Andy's team in difficulty early on as the pole-sitting car has been damaged after contact right here with James Weaver, who went out like a shot. I think he wanted to make some kind of a statement there. He certainly did not intend to touch the Ferrari, but he darn sure intended to pass it.
Well, as I mentioned, I expected James to run hard. These cars are very quick, and they've got a 2-car team. You can see a little bit of damage to the right front of the Riley and Scott car there. That splitter area is a fairly critical area aerodynamically on these cars, so let's hope that it's not too badly damaged. You can see the tighter shot here. And he's probably pulling out from the pit wall so the team can have a look at the front of the car. You see him sweep to his left there. It is damaged, but not horribly, and I'm sure he'll be able to continue to the first stop.
One of the interesting issues at Daytona, as we look at the interval back to the second place battle. This is the battle for second spot. That number 88, the Winchester car, is shared here by Danny Sullivan, Jeff Jones, and Ross Bentley. That is a Chevy-powered Riley and Scott, and it has just picked up position over the number 1 Banca machine. You're riding along here with Wayne Taylor, who is now third. The point I was about to make is that at Daytona, they trimmed out the Ferrari to run fast on the banking, but the Riley and Scott chassis has a lot of downforce. Does either of those cars have an advantage on this racetrack?
I would say the Ferrari has a slight advantage, but this racetrack is definitely more downforce oriented than Daytona, where the Ferraris clearly had an advantage. Here, you can see James Weaver is in the lead at this stage, and he was right with the Ferrari in the opening lap. And that Ford-powered car is very quick. This Oldsmobile-powered car, not quite as much horsepower, not quite as quick on the straightaways.
So we are underway at Sebring with a 12-hour grind that has begun with a collision. Somebody else has made contact out there. We'll follow up on that when we come back. We're back at Sebring International Raceway. The Superflo 12 hours underway under beautiful, beautiful blue skies. Rained all day yesterday. Here is your early leader, James Weaver, who took the lead after contact and an aggressive pass with the pole-sitting Ferrari of Yannick Dalmas. And now Weaver setting out to extend that lead as he works his way through some of the slower automobiles, the GTS3 machines. Very quickly, that 05 car that we saw just before the break, William Stitt, Joe Cogbill, have damaged the front of their car. It doesn't appear to be serious. They are effecting repairs. Meanwhile, we have a battle for GTS1 leadership, and it's our guys, Bill Adam and Hans Stuck, with onboard and radio, currently holding that margin by what? About, I'd make it 10 feet, perhaps, at sections of this racetrack over the team of George Robinson, Herb Hare, and Jack Baldwin. All familiar names among sedan racers, and that is the Hot Wheels Oldsmobile Aurora.
Yes, and the 74 car, the Porsche with Adam and Stuck, this is the car that won here last year. The Oldsmobile Aurora is the car that won 2 years ago. So these are both very competitive cars, and I expect that these are the two cars that we will see leading this category for most of the race.
A small army of Porsches here, right?
I got to tell you, Hans Stuck is actually a little disappointed today. We talked to him yesterday. He was in heaven. It was raining all over the place. Anybody who knows Hans Stuck knows that's what he loves best. Bill Adam, on the other hand, he was all smiles today. He says, I can do a lot better than this. This is my day to shine.
They call Stuck the Rainmeister, and he is at the controls here of the Porsche 911, of which there are, I had the number up to the top of my head, I think it's 17 of these in the field. There are a bunch of them, and they're in a bunch of different classes, and it gets a little complicated to keep them all straight. For the moment, this is the one that leads all the 911s in the field. That is your GTS1 production car battle for the lead at this point, and they are 11th and 12th overall on the field.
And that Porsche is a twin turbocharged flat six. The Aurora here, obviously a V8 Oldsmobile Aurora powered car, overhead cam, 4 liters in displacement, excuse me, 4.5 I believe, 32 valves, production-based motor, very good motor.
Down to the hairpin. Not much to choose between them. If anything, the Aurora maybe was a little better on the brakes there.
Well, I think, as you mentioned earlier, both of these guys will be trying to settle into a bit of a pace. They've been running laps in the 206 range, so those are reasonable laps, but they're not real quick. So I think they're settling in and probably just feeling each other out at this point.
Back on board with Stuck. See the water tower. Some of the buildings here date back to the 50s when this was an old airbase, actually into the 40s, World War II. The first race was run here in 1950. Local kind of an entrepreneur by the name of Alec Ullman thought that'd be a great use for this facility to run a sports car race. Named it after the legendary sports car pioneer Sam Collier. The first race was 6 hours, done on a very complex performance formula, and who would have believed that a Crosley hotshot won the race?
Well, a Chrysler hotshot wouldn't have a hope today. That's for sure. These cars are very, very quick cars, approaching 185 miles an hour down into turn 17, the last corner there.
It's a pretty interesting matchup here. The German Porsche, the American Oldsmobile, and the interval seems to be pretty stable.
Well, this is what sports car has done so well. You know, you've got a front engine car, a rear engine car, turbocharged car, non-turbocharged car. You know, very different platforms here, and they are remarkably equal. And that is a very difficult task, to equalize these cars in all these different classes. Very, very difficult.
You mentioned at the top that there is much new in the world of American sports car racing, and soon, I think, in world sports car racing as a result of this new organization. IMSA is no more. Professional Sports Car Racing, the moniker of this new organization. Andy Evans and Roberto Muller purchasing this organization, and they have big, big plans for the future. There's your second place GT2 car, and there is the leader. The leader is the team of Price Cobb, Rob Rizzo, and Phil Andrews. This is the Ford Saleen Mustang, of which we have a fleet here today. Those are good cars.
They're good cars, and they really did struggle at Daytona. And as Price said in the opening, he knew the moment he drove the car that it was a good race car. And it's interesting. You can just watch this car on the racetrack, and you can see that it handles well. It seems to put power down well. It doesn't move around a lot, and the car was very quick at Daytona. They just had a lot of reliability problems. It was the first race, so you're bound to have those kinds of problems.
Price Cobb, with a long history in this type of competition, currently sitting 17th in the overall rundown, and that puts him first in the GTS2 division. Here's the traffic.
And that car that Price is coming up on, that's just in front of him there, that is the team car to the second place GT1 Aurora. So you can see that Price is going very well in this GT2 category car to be running with that GT1 car that's right in front of him.
Differences between the various production classes, the GT classes, have to do with the power output of the motor. Tire specifications are different. The GTS1 cars have big fat tires that put a lot of power to the ground. The GTS2 cars have somewhat narrower tires, which limits the power output a little bit. The GT3 division, meanwhile, the car at the head of the leaderboard is going to be a Porsche 911, and as I said, you're going to see a lot of those. How about our spotters? Who picked up that car? He's way back in 25th spot, but leading his division, Jorge Trejos, Dennis Ossie, and Joe Bardi. Trejos from Costa Rica. Ossie and Bardi, of course, are longtime participants in American sports car racing. And here's good news. We knew we'd see this soon. The Panos is back.
Yeah, they've obviously got some folks out there and got it refired. They'll probably drive it back to pit lane. It looks like he's going down to the hairpin now, so he's just gotten that car back on the racetrack. Probably run it back to pit lane because he's going to pull off again. He's slowing again. So obviously they haven't gotten their problem completely sorted out.
You have to wonder if it's not electrical. That intermittent problem like this has left the Panos stranded for a second time. And I would say in harm's way, although he is still limping along here, perhaps hoping to get it to a safer resting point. He's coasting. He's going to have to pull it off on the grass. So we'll take another break. We'll see if this forces a yellow. Remember, these WSC cars don't go a long ways on fuel. We'll see pit stops soon. Drag race nut, this is for you. It's the Slick 50 Nationals coming up Sunday, March 23rd, week from tomorrow. All day long, it's live on pay-per-view. Costs you $15. Call your cable operator or your satellite provider and overdose on drag racing. That is going to be a fun deal. You have seen the future, and it is day-long racing. Well, we have the first pit stop for Bill Adam and Hans Stuck. Let's get down trackside.
I mentioned how Hans Stuck was disappointed because there was no rain. Now he's really disappointed. The car has no turbo boost, apparently. They were running around doing just fine. Suddenly it started to cut out. The crew has gone to work. But I got news for you. This could be a serious problem for these guys. Right now, Hans Stuck is sitting there cooling his heels, and Hans does not like to stay stationary for very long.
Stuck Rick on pit road. That is the defending GTS winning car here at Sebring. They won the thing last year. They have trouble inside the first hour. We will see scheduled pit stops for the World Sports Cars coming up soon. This is James Weaver, the race leader. He's been racing in the American Sports Car War since back in the late 1980s. In fact, his first victory was in 1988. He won at Miami with Price Cobbin. It was the second closest margin in GT history. Won that race by 4 thousandths of a second. Working his way back down toward Sunset Bend, as it's known, and you'll see. I predict a beautiful sunset here during the course of this afternoon. Weaver is just blitzing away from these guys. Here's your third place car on the racetrack, the first of the Ferraris now, as the Riley and Scott Oldsmobiles moved into second spot.
And you can see Jean-Pierre Moretti on board here. You can see what he has to deal with there. Other cars in other classes passing each other, sometimes aware of his presence, sometimes not even aware of his presence. So he just has to be patient and work his way through that traffic. And you can see Elliott Forbes Robinson in the 20 car right on top of him. Jean-Pierre, very experienced. He's not too worried. He's just setting a pace. We know Weaver's running hard. I would suspect this 20 car, sister to the lead car, is also just running a nice pace at this point.
His third and fourth place overall that you're watching, Jean-Pierre Moretti fighting that steering wheel a little bit as he threads his way through the traffic, pursued by the Daytona winning number 20. And what a great story that was. I love the headline in, was it Auto Week, I think, that described that number 20, Riley and Scott Ford, as the Magnificent Seven. He was banging along on 7 cylinders at the end, smoked for the last 2 hours, and now he is all over the rear deck of the Ferrari.
Yeah, now this is the 43 car, the car that started on the front row back in 8th overall right now. And it looks like there's maybe something hung up in the front radiator screen on that car. We could see that angle coming down the main straightaway. But again, this is the team car to the pole-sitting car. And I'm sure this car is also just on a pace. They've settled into a nice pace because they're way back in 8th position from the front row. And we know that this car is capable of running at the front. This is a battle for position. This car behind him,
the Oldsmobile Spice, currently being shown in the 9th spot. Car 43 is 8th in the running order, and that is Andy Evans' mount with Fermin Velez, Rob Morgan, and Charles Morgan sharing the driving responsibilities. When you've got a position fight and the lap traffic to deal with, it's more important to avoid the lap traffic than it is to fight for the position at this juncture of the race.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you just want to set your pace, run your lap time, not get yourself into trouble. We're in the first half hour of a 12-hour race. There's just no point in doing anything silly. I think that James Weaver and Yannick Dalmas were very lucky in that opening lap incident not to damage those cars in a much more significant way than they did.
We now have a confirmation that the Panos apparently has suffered an electrical problem, so our speculation has apparently been borne out. Here is your GTS leader. As you can see, the Oldsmobile has moved up a position and taken over the class lead.
Yeah, Hans Stuck's misfortune plays into the hands of George Robinson and company with this Aurora. And I would not expect this car. This should be a fairly reliable package, this car. This should be a car that should get to the end of the 12 hours very reliably and quickly. So the Porsche boys are going to be in trouble if they don't get that GTS1 car fixed quickly and back on the racetrack.
And the update from pit road says that Stuck's automobile apparently had lost a hose. They have replaced it, repaired it, and he's back underway. So they lost some time, but not a huge and painful amount of time during that early stop, but it broke up a great battle for the GTS1 lead, which is now firmly in the hands of George Robinson. Hard to overemphasize the extent to which patience is the key here on this racetrack. There is so much inherent abuse of the car involved in just driving it all of these laps over this very, very rough surface. You certainly don't want to take it away. Now, wait a minute. We've got 74 back on pit road. Let's go to Rick.
Well, a very frustrated team right now. They thought they had solved the problem by reconnecting a hose. They sent them back out for a lap. It's not doing the job. They don't know exactly what to do right now. They're going to go back and start changing some of the things in the back. But the important thing to remember, in a 12-hour endurance race, anything can happen. These guys have got to do the work now, even if it takes a long time, because you never know what's going to happen to that lead car.
The defending race champions in GTS 1 from a year ago, Bill Adam and Hans Stuck, frustrated early. The discussion going on here as to the nature of the problem, the solution of the problem. I don't think you have to speak German to know something broke.
Yeah, and that was Alwyn Springer from Andal, who builds these motors. And if he doesn't know what's wrong with this motor, there's probably nobody that does, because this man knows these Porsche flat six racing engines better than anyone else. So this is a bit of a problem for these guys, obviously.
Springer hard at work on it. Now, they're not the only ones with difficulty. This is the Acura NSX. This is a car that there's been an awful lot of talk about. It's been fast when it runs. Let's go to Marty.
These guys are so disappointed. In practice, they had the unofficial best lap time in GTS 3. Then it came to qualifying. They lost the motor, and it was not able to record that quick time. They started from the back of the field. Dorsey Schrader was cutting through this field like the proverbial butter. He had a little contact on the left front. All of a sudden, he's recording a soft pedal. So they are in, checking all the brake lines and everything, and we'll keep you posted.
The car has a tremendous future, I think, if they're able to continue the development on it. Mark Hine is the guy responsible for the Acura NSX, the only one in the field. Stuck there, going back out. This is the Daytona car, rebuilt, ready to rock and roll here at Sebring, but hampered early on by cooling system problems. The Acura driving responsibilities shared in part, as you heard, by Dorsey Schrader, who said at Daytona, we're just going to take the thing out and do what we can do with it, and now have come here and lost a bunch of engines. Meanwhile, we have Dalmas on the move. The pole sitter, having been clobbered by James Weaver early on and dropping deep in the field for a tire change, has now just passed his teammate to take over 8th spot. It's a battle of the Ferraris, and you're riding with Yannick.
Yeah, and he's running lap times in the 155 region, where James Weaver is running in the 157 range. So he's catching the lead car by roughly 2 seconds a lap, and those times fluctuate obviously because of the traffic, but I think it's safe to say that he's running pretty hard at this stage and would like to get that car back up towards the front.
Yannick Dalmas, officially the fastest man in Sebring history, playing catch-up as we take a break from the Exxon Superflo 12 Hours of Sebring. Let's take you back to Sebring 1964. The Le Mans start, a trademark of the great sports car races. And this was American Iron, the number 4 Corvette, the number 11 Cobra, Yankee Ingenuity versus an army of brilliant red Ferrari prototypes. The best of the Ferraris, the number 22, shared by Michael Parks and Umberto Maglioli. Their 275P claimed the honors, Ferrari's 6th win in 7 starts here in 1964, the year some of us graduated from high school. Sharp-eyed observers may have recognized Chris Economaki in that victory lane shot. Meanwhile, we go back with the leader, and what a pace he is setting. James Weaver is packing the mail here in the 12 Hours of Sebring. An aggressive early pass on the pole sitter Dalmas left Yannick with a damaged Ferrari and left Weaver out front, and James did not look back. He is cutting the trail here.
Yeah, and James is not one to sit on his hands and just take it easy. He likes to be aggressive. He likes to drive aggressively, and he is the leader of this Dyson team. And we should say hello to Rob Dyson, who couldn't be with us today. His father passed away yesterday and had to go home. So we're sorry that Rob Dyson is not with us, but James is a leader of this team and does a great job for this team, and he's really setting the tone here for the Dyson team.
I thought with Rob Dyson, family today. That huge disappointment coming on the heels of the sensational victory in Daytona, which this car, of course, broke early. All of the drivers from this car joined the team car, the 20 car, and as it sputtered and its engine began to expire in the last couple of races, there was that hard-stopping drama as they tried to hold off the Ferrari. It was just one of the classic Daytona races. Here we pick up a battle for position for 6th and 7th spot. The 8 car currently 6th is the Henry Campherdam owned Chevy Hawk, one-of-a-kind WSC car, and he is holding on to that, what'd I say, 6th spot.
Yeah, and that's Johnny O'Connell on board there. They brought Johnny on full-time this year to try and develop this car. This car's been on this racing circuit for a couple of years now, and I think Johnny will really be able to help him with the development on the car. And he's, of course, running in front of the Riley and Scott chassis Ford-powered car of Craig T. Nelson, the 2-car.
Coach getting after it pretty good there. Position fight for 5th and 6th. 2 WSC cars. The Riley and Scott chassis, of course, is I would say the dominant chassis in terms of numbers here. Not in terms of speed, because the Ferraris have taken the top 3 spots in the field, but there are more Riley and Scott entries here than any other flavor of chassis, and they come with 3 different power plants. Watching the battle for 5th. Car 8 and car 2, the WSC cars running 5th and 6th as they overhaul some of the slower GT machines.
And you saw a moment ago there Dan Clark, who's on board this 2 car, some of the situations you can get into in traffic where he got out around the outside of a slower car there and almost got pushed off the racetrack. So this is what you deal with lap after lap here at Sebring with 67 cars, and especially if you're in one of these quick WSC cars.
For the record, that is Craig T. Nelson, his own self at the wheel of automobile. Coach is a great racing enthusiast. He likes a lot of different kinds of racing. He's really poured a lot of effort into that automobile. This is your 2nd place GTS 1 car, the Olds Aurora from the 74 Hunting Ranch team. Car number 75, driven here by Vic Sifton, John Gooding, and Joe Pezza. They are currently 2nd.
And George Robinson bought these cars from Harry Bricks, who ran them last year, finished 1st and 2nd in the championship last year, and George Robinson campaigning them this year as an independent. Last year was a factory Oldsmobile team.
Harry Bricks, meanwhile, has gone on, among other things, to race trucks in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Racing Series with Darren Brassfield. And perhaps a measure of how difficult that series is. That Darren's had his fair share of difficulty qualifying for the shows. You take an owner as powerhouse as Bricks and a driver as good as Brassfield, and they can't make the race. That says something about the competition level. Need to pay some more bills. We'll take a break. We're in Sebring for the 12 hours. We got battles all over the racetrack, and this is your GTS 1 leaderboard. We're back at Sebring. It'll be a long day for the crews who maintain these automobiles. The carnival atmosphere, very much part of the Sebring story. James Weaver, the leader since lap 3, running his way through the traffic. A little surprised, perhaps, at the pace they're setting. Maybe they want to break the Ferrari.
Well, yeah, James Weaver running in the 157 range. The cars behind him mostly running about 2 to 3 seconds a lap slower, so he's running quick. But the 3 car, the Pole City car, is running in the 155 range, so he is making up time. He's about a minute back from Weaver right now. Weaver should be stopping shortly to put some fuel in this car. So I think we're going to see that margin tighten up a little bit.
They only carry a little more than 20 gallons of fuel in the WSC cars, so their window for that first stop comes pretty early on, perhaps 40 minutes into the race. We see the damage on the right front corner of Weaver's car. He joined us late. He's collided with the pole sitter, Yannick Dalmas. Just a couple of laps into the fray, and that left Dalmas with a shredded left rear. Meanwhile, the number 43 Ferrari is not maintaining the pace. Once Dalmas went by, the 43 has continued to back up. In fact, he's backed up a bunch. Let's find out why.
Well, we're going to have to start keeping our eye on debris out on the racetrack. The papers, the loose stuff that's blowing around, hot dog wrappers and that kind of thing. They had a bunch of it up into the radiator. The temperature soared. He almost cooked the motor. He got it in here. They quickly took the bonnet off. He lost a lot of time, but the temperature finally came down. He went back out, of course, with a clean radiator.
Charles Morgan at the controls of the Ferrari, which sat on the outside of the front row, dropped to next to last in the WSC, a running order 31st overall after that stop to remove debris from the radiator. So it'll be a catch-up game now for the moment for Charles, who shares the driving responsibilities with his son Rob in the Ferrari owned by Andy Evans, who also owns the racetrack and the sanctioning body. He's doing okay, but then that's because he's Bill Gates' banker. And I guess if you're Bill Gates' banker, you ought to be doing okay. Here's the pit stop for the leader. James Weaver has brought the lead automobile, the Riley and Scott Ford, onto pit road.
Yeah, and you get a good look at the damage on the right front. It's going to hurt a little bit on the downforce, and just a little bit to the right. The team has sent its own message to the Dyson family. The passing of Charlie Dyson last night, Rob not here, and we send our best as you guys did up top. These guys have dedicated this race to Rob and his father, and they are determined. And we asked Pat Smith, crew chief, about the lap times, guys, and he says we're very comfortable with that. He says if we have to, we can go run 52s. They are determined to try and run the Ferraris, I think, into the ground. Rick, what do you got?
Well, we got Wayne Taylor in the pits. You know, we haven't heard much about this car today. He's quietly been going around doing his thing. They're coming in, very efficient pit stop. But you have to remember, a couple years ago when he won his first championship, he didn't win a race the whole year. He very quietly went off and won that championship. So just because we don't have a lot of splash from Wayne Taylor early in the race isn't really significant. What matters is going to be at the back end of the race when this car is finally coming around to the winning circle. Very possible. Once again, Wayne Taylor, things going fairly well. They're still fueling up. That's the important thing to remember. That's what takes so long in these pit stops. It's the fuel going in. They restrict it so that it goes a little bit longer. They fuel him up, send him back on his way.
Taylor briefly held the lead in the race, but now has surrendered it with the pit stop to Jean-Pierre Moretti. So the number 30 Ferrari goes to the front as the pit stop sequences begin. To help, oh, we've got a loop, a spin right in front of the leader. Moretti had to do the dodge there. And
that's the 28 car, the Spice. And you can see this car will now have some debris in its radiator as well, as it does a little bit of off-roading here. There's not a lot of room here. He looks like he's going to have to back up, and that really puts you in a dangerous situation having to back up on a racetrack like that.
John Field, Juan Gach, Jacek Mucha, and A.J. Smith sharing the driving responsibilities. And let's take a look at what happened. There's Moretti, the leader, and right in front of him, Yahoo!
Yeah, and that BMW was very close there, too. It's quite possible that that Spice WSC car got a little tap there. Hard to say, but nevertheless created a bit of a moment there for everyone.
He has certainly flat spotted the tires. Doesn't appear to have done any other damage, but he's limping back up to speed now.
Yeah, I would say that body work is out of alignment there. So I would say that car maybe did get a little bit of a tap.
That's why we have expert analysts. They notice things like this. Here's the leader at work. He has not yet fitted. Moretti continuing to truck here as he leads over the team car of Yannick Dalmas. Dalmas, remember, made the early pit stop, so he has now climbed back up through the running order to run second to Moretti. Moretti anticipating a pit stop soon.
Yeah, of course, Dalmas will be out of sequence on pit stops with these other guys. So when Moretti stops, the 3-car will go into the lead. Let's go down to Marty Reed in pit lane.
Well, Elliott Forbes Robinson is going to stay in the car. This is what the front end should look like. And the 43 car just went by. You might have gotten a glimpse of it. It is pulling behind the wall. So one of the Scandia Ferraris is out of this race, at least for the moment. So the rabbit and hare theory has just been shot. Now it's going to be up to the 3-car. And right now, the 2 Dyson Fords are in control with the other Oldsmobile, Riley and Scott chassis, in pursuit. And then don't forget about the 30 car. We're waiting for that pit stop. Looks like the 30 car maybe getting the best mileage of all of them.
Speculation that Morgan might have hurt the Ferrari when it got debris in the radiator and overheated the motor, and now that theory freezes as the car has gone behind the wall. Let's hope they can fix it and bring it back down. Riding with Moretti, who continues to lead and is sipping fuel here today as he has not yet made his stop. Coincidentally, right behind him and just going a lap down is the number 50. That is your GTS 3 class leader. So they're running together on the racetrack. You got to look earlier at the number 50 car.
Yeah, and you can see that the 3 car is now only about 7 or 8 seconds behind Moretti. So the 3 car has really made a good run through this field after that first lap incident.
There's your number 50 of Ossie and Marty. You saw the 3 just ahead of them. The red Ferrari disappearing up the front straightaway. Almost with a hammer down.
And it looked like Moretti ducked into the pit lane there, and you can see very slow pit lane speed here, very narrow, very dangerous pit. So you can see he's really going easy, and he's undoing those belts, so you know he's going to be hopping out of that car.
Moretti, the owner of the car, will be handing off. Let's go to Marty.
You're right, guys. The first driver change of the day in WSC. It's going to be Antonio Herman taking over for Jean-Pierre Moretti. Now, this is normal for Moretti's team. If you remember back in the Rolex 24, he likes to do single shifts. Get everybody into the car, get the butterflies out, then go racing when you really need it. It almost worked for him had they not had the late problems in the middle of the night with all the electricals and the fire and everything else. They feel like they're owed one here. They feel like they're ready. And so far, the driver change going very well. The fuel is still going in. Fuel's always the last, as Rick said, and it looks like he is buttoned up. Wires are connected, and again, the fuel is the last thing. The car's down. They're waiting for him to fire the motor, pull the plug. He's ready.
Yeah. I love Moretti's quote at Daytona. He said, "I love this Daytona, but she doesn't love me back." We'll be right back with more from Sebring. We're back at Sebring. Yeah, Yannick Dalmas knows a little bit about this endurance racing. He's won Le Mans 3 times in 3 different kinds of cars, and he is currently leading at Sebring if he can find his way through the slower traffic. Look out, Yannick. You'll hurt that thing again. You saw early on he was clipped by a Weaver, cut down the left rear, had to go to the pits, get a new tire. He's out of sequence on pit stops. Everything else is in sequence very nicely, thank you, because he is flat flying. He has come through the field, and with the rest of the leaders stopping for their scheduled pit stops, we are back to the point at which we began, and that is Yannick Dalmas out front.
And that's a great shot. You look at the front of that car, and you can see on the Ferraris, the air intakes are like scoops, and they go deep into the car, and that's the problem they had with the 43 car, where it got debris in there. If you look at the front of the Dyson cars, they have a screen that comes out, so nothing can go into the tunnel like that and get caught in there, and that might prove to be quite an advantage for the Dyson cars with all the debris here.
Dalmas with clear track for the moment. Having cut laps in the 154 range as he came up through the traffic to compare with a 149 qualifying effort. This is the number 30 car, now driven by Herman. The guy who took it to the front of the field is standing by with Marty.
Jean-Pierre Moretti, you were very demonstrative in the debrief with the crew. What were you telling them about the car or the track?
You were saying what I was telling them, that in the fast corner the car was a little oversteering, but just going in the airport, you know, probably we made a very soft setup for the long race for 12 hours, and it probably is a little too soft if you are going a little too fast. I mean, if you are going too fast in this corner. Otherwise, the car is perfect.
So in other words, you're having a little e-ticket ride out there then in that one corner. You're having an e-ticket ride out in that one corner, like being on a roller coaster?
I did one time fast. I did almost sideways. So I did it slower in the other laps. So,
well, guys, I don't know what they call it in Italian, but that's definitely an e-ticket ride in my book.
And I guarantee you, he didn't understand what you meant, Marty. You can see, though, that car, they've been fighting that car through the fast stuff all day.
And I think it's interesting what Jean-Pierre said there is that they've set it up a little soft for the 12-hour, so it's not as hard on the drivers, it's not as hard on the car. Ultimately, the car is not as fast lap time-wise, but they're more interested in getting to the end, and they see the soft setup as being a way to get there.
Herman is currently in 5th spot after the pit stop, and we'll get a feel for what Moretti was talking about there. The car tending to oversteer a little bit. Your GTS 1 leader, the number 11 automobile, is currently shown 9th in the overall running order. Robinson, Hare, and Baldwin at the controls of the Hot Wheels Aurora, the Oldsmobile Aurora that battled earlier with Hans Stuck before Stuck had a problem. Here is Dalmas pitting, and I would assume that might be routine. We'll find out from hard-working Marty Reed.
Yeah, guys, this is going to be a routine stop for a change for these guys. No flats, 4 fresh ones going on. Actually, they were scuffed in during practice, but Yannick Dalmas will stay in behind the wheel. He's checking, resetting the fuel meter, got everything else under control. Crew's got all 4 tires taken care of, except for the right rear. It's finally taken care of, and again, it's the fuel, but they do that on purpose. And so they are on their way pretty soon here, as soon as the fuel's taken care of. And all we can tell you on the 43 right now, it is still behind the wall, and it may be a serious terminal motor problem.
All right, thank you, Marty. 6.5 hours of coverage here on ESPN. Marty's feet will hurt at the end of that, but he will do a continuing good job along with Rick DeBrule. The Ferraris currently slipping off the lead, and the new leader is number 16. James Weaver comes back to the top.
Yeah, James Weaver was about 20 seconds behind the 3-car when the 3-car pitted, so he overhauled the 3-car pretty easily, and I think we're going to see this battle go back and forth probably in the early hours here. Very good driver lineups in both of these cars, and I think it's interesting, if the 43 car is in fact retired, that frees up the Scandia driver lineup. That means that Andy Evans and Fermin Velez can both concentrate on that 3-car with Yannick Dalmas and Stefan Johansson. Here's the 00 car off the road. Little damage in the right front there. Spray the, trying to get back off the road.
Course workers got muddy. Car has stalled. Now they've got it refired and back underway. That's Graham Smith, John Graham, and Robin Smith in the X250 Ferrari. Here is your GTS2 leader. This is the number 52 car. Driving responsibilities shared by Enzo Calderari, Lillian Reiner, and Ulrich Richter. It's a Porsche 911, and they are from Switzerland and Germany. And in the running order, let's see, 12th, I believe, overall. They are former competitors in the BPR series, the International Prototype Series. This is the proverbial debris on the racetrack. That's a pretty good-sized hunk of somebody's car.
Yeah, that's on the back straight.
I wonder if there's a connection.
Well, that's interesting. This car has lost about all the bodywork it can actually lose. I mean, it's lost its nose, and now it's lost its tail, and so that's it. Not much else can fall off. So keep going, guys.
Well, once again, a tip of the hat to the ESPN crew for picking that up. That's the Ford Keeler that is owned and built and owned by David Kopp. And that's a one-off.
It's good for our audience because it gives them a good look at what's under the skin of a WSC car. So hats off to these guys for letting us have a look at that.
Your basic 150-mile-an-hour car cutaway demonstration right there. You pay $12 to see that at Daytona, USA. We give it to you for free. They had a tough time at Daytona. That's a car that will experience, I'm sure, a lot of teething problems, although this is one that you don't plan on, and that'll be a handful without the aerodynamic help of the body.
Absolutely. That will completely upset that car. Here's the GTS1 class leader, Rick DeBrule's in pit lane.
All right, this is the pit stop that they have been planning for. In fact, they took it a little bit longer than their team car. Herb Hare brings the car in. They've changed the tires once again. As we said, the longest thing it takes for the fuel to go in. The fuel is going in, and I got to tell you, so far the team is ecstatic with the way the car is working. They weren't worried when they saw that Pinot on the pole in this position. Now the engine starts to rise as they start to pull it out. So they just push it. He's back out and ready to do battle again.
They are currently 9th overall and 1 lap down. Your GTS1 class leader of the Oldsmobile is back on track, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back at Sebring. Here they come down the runway, make the turn back toward the start-finish line. Weaver is the leader, 10-time winner in what used to be known as IMSA competition. Just joined us. No, it's not IMSA anymore. It is Professional Sports Car Racing, the new name for the sanctioning body. We'll elaborate on that a little more. Right now we've got racing here as they come down that long front straightaway and then make the turn. Turn 1. 16 car has been the quickest most of the day, sharing that honor with the number 3 Ferrari of Dalmas. At the moment, Weaver is your leader. Dalmas having recently pitted. Interesting matchup of the American-built Riley and Scott chassis and Ford power plant up against the legendary Italian Ferrari. I mean, you got to feel a little bit of national pride, regardless of which side of that issue you come down on. I'm sure the Italians would love to see another Sebring victory. It would be their 11th.
Well, absolutely, and we can't forget about the battles here at Sebring and Daytona and Le Mans between Ford and Ferrari over the years. There have been many.
Somewhere in the middle of this small army of cars is a small, comparatively small Porsche 911. It'll be number 50. It's the red car. Here he comes. Trejos, Assi, and Vardy are the drivers, and they have led GTS3 from the get-go. They are 2 laps down to the leader, and they are racing for position with this guy, number 10, the green First Union BMW. 50 and 10 is the battle for the class leadership, and as you can see, they are surrounded, but the position fight is this guy just making the turn right there, and this guy just making the turn right there, and this guy is, I believe, Oberlin. He's still in the car, having started it. Bill Oberlin, who was so fast at Daytona. They had all of the adventures, the early collision, and then the collapsed windshield, and all the rest of that. But right now, they're trying to run down the class leader. They are second and 2 laps down.
Yeah, and this team is a couple of years old and has now seems to really be hitting their stride now. This is a production-based car. It is built from a BMW off the assembly line, highly modified, obviously, but it is a production-based car, and they really had some problems developing it for this type of racing, but they've really come a long way with it. The car is very, very quick and has become more and more reliable, and it's really an impressive effort.
BMW M3. That's how it looks out the back as you watch the competition disappear into the distance. The competition in this case, Jack Refening, who has run 16 of these Sebring races, and is very high on the all-time list for starts here. Tom Milner, the owner of this car, you heard him say at the top of the show that he really feels Sebring owes him one. He got one at Daytona. He's been around the racing game forever. Back when he was partners with Bill Scott, they used to run Formula V. They won 10 championships, Super V, Formula Ford. What impresses me is the list of people who have driven for Tom Milner. Listen to this lineup. Ray Hall, Elliott Forbes Robinson, Rick Mears, Kevin Cogan, Lynn St. James, Chip Robinson, Scott Goodyear, Ari Lyondike, Tom Gloyd, Paul Newman, Scott Sharp, Derek Cope, Johnny Rumley, and Jeff Green, as they say, just to name a few. He's got a pretty good eye for talent, I'd say.
Yeah, Tom is very experienced, and I think he is the biggest reason that this team is really come on strong this year. They really started the middle of last year to really hit their stride, and they're doing just a fantastic job.
The Oberlin kid, 28 years old, pretty impressive. He's got tremendous speed.
He's been around this category of racing, what we call GTS3, which used to be GTS2, which used to be GTU. He has been around this category of racing for many years and knows it as well as anyone, and has always been fast, but has had problems getting the right ride underneath him, and I think that this could be a good combination. Milner will keep him in check and keep him on the right road.
Oberlin learned the trade, of course, from his dad, who was a former class winner here at Sebring. Go further back in the field. Let's see. This would be third in class number 76 in the GTS division. We ride on board here the 911 of Team ARE. The drivers, Corbin Wagner, Kelly Collins, and Gary Blackman. Blackman joins the team for Sebring because he literally grew up around this place. He's the local boy.
Yeah, and this car is battling with the one of the team BMWs that is just behind him here, the 7 car coming through. You can see one of the WSC cars coming through this group of cars, but this car is also in a tight battle, and I think we will see this going back and forth all day. There's our leader there, the 16 car. We'll see the battle going back and forth all day between the 911s and the M3s. These are definitely the dominant cars in the class, and they will be racing all day.
Number 7 is the car with Fina on the back bumper, the white BMW that is sponsored by the Red Bull Energy Drink, one of the 3 cars in the Wilson stable. That is the 76 car, which is third in class. That's the Team ARE entry on which we ride. Man, I'll tell you what, they are working their way through the traffic.
Yeah, and you can see what he has to deal with here. You know, all of these cars are involved in a race of some kind. There's a WSC car right in front of him that's trying to get through this group of cars, and of course, he will catch this group of cars. Very quick kink here, leading up to turn 15. Little braking zone here, down a gear, through this apex, and then it opens up into no man's land here. At night, this is very tricky, very dark out here. and you really need a good set of headlights. You can see the WSC car going off in the distance there. And meanwhile, he's got a car behind him that's trying to get by him.
Terrific racing at Sebring. It's the Superflo 12 Hours, and we're all over it on ESPN. There's a lot more to come. Stay with us. Exclusive Speed World coverage of the Superflo 12 Hours of Sebring is brought to you by Firestone, America's tires since 1900. Count on this. During a 12-hour grind at Sebring, you will have trouble. The question is how much and how often and how serious. Let's go to Rick DeBrule.
Well, you're looking at Darren Brasfield. He is cooling his heels right now in the number 2 car, waiting for it to be repaired to go back out. Earlier in the race, Craig T. Nelson started the car. Unfortunately, the CV joint at the back is broken. As a result, it was letting grease out onto the header, smoking like you couldn't believe. They brought it in to work on it. In the meantime, everybody just kind of waiting around, and poor Darren Brasfield had to sit there and wonder, when is he going to get back into this race? Next, we get a chance to run a lap. This is not the only car having troubles, though. Marty's with another one.
Oh, yes, I am, Rick. You can see they are pulling the entire underpan on the front nose section. It got damaged on the right front corner when Ross Bentley ran over something, and they have to take that whole bottom section off of the race car, and it is extremely long. You can see the water coming out of the radiator lines. This takes forever. Jeff Jones has climbed behind the wheel, but he probably could have gone out for lunch, because this is one of the situations that if this happens, you're in here for a long time. There's just no quick fix for this one.
Yeah, these Riley and Scott cars are very simple, very well-designed cars, but if you damage this front under tray, the radiator's attached to it, you have to drain the cooling system. There's an incredible amount of work to do to repair that. So it's the last thing you want to damage on this car, and unfortunately that's where they're at right now.
Riley and Scott, of course, scheduled to build IRL cars here in the future. This is the Riley and Scott chassis that has led most of the race as James Weaver continues to work his way through the traffic right there at the scene of this early contact with the pole-sitting Ferrari of Yannick Dalmas. Now Dalmas is running in second spot, well back. And
well, only about 24 seconds back, and still running a couple of seconds quicker than James Weaver. So, as I said, I think that this gap is going to tighten up in the next hour or so.
Meanwhile, the GTS 1 class leader has moved inside the overall top 10. And it is the team of Jochen Rohr, Andy Pilgrim, and Robert Kearn of Cincinnati, Ohio, Cooper City, Florida, and London, England, respectively. Their little Porsche 911 Turbo is doing very well, having taken over the class lead, currently 9th overall.
And it looks like this car is going to have to pick up where the 74 left off. The 74 has disappeared off our leaderboard now. They were having earlier turbocharger problems. This is essentially the same type of race car, twin turbo 911 Porsche, and it will have to carry the Porsche banner in the GTS 1 category unless they get that 74 car up and running again.
Now, they carried the banner very effectively at Daytona, having won their class in the 24-hour. The Rohr Motorsports Porsche is roaring again here at Sebring, looking for 2 in a row in what endurance enthusiasts call the 36 hours of Florida. We'll take a break and come back with more. You'll see a lot of that new logo, Professional Sports Car Racing. Now the name for what was formerly IMSA, the series that came here to Sebring in 1973. It has a new look, it has new ownership, new backing, and a new vision of the future of sports car racing. A whole lot is happening with what you used to know as IMSA, and you're going to find out a lot more about that during the course of this next 11 hours. Right now, let's update you on the class standings in each of the 4 professional sports car racing divisions. In WSC, the overall leaders, there's your top 4, Weaver and Dalmas. We documented the earlier incident. Taylor, the defending race champion, and Elliott Forbes Robinson currently sitting in 4th spot. In the GTS, the production categories, the Porsche Turbo that we saw just before the commercial break has taken the lead over the Oldsmobile, now driven by Herb Hare. Oldsmobile having a pretty good run here with second and third, and the McDill Camaro has now moved up into fourth spot. Here's GTS2. Remember Bob Wallach? He's got a tremendous sports car endurance history, and he's currently the class leader here over Jim Pacey's Porsche. Porsche's running second and third, and then Price Cobb in the Saleen Mustang in the fourth spot and 3 laps down. GTS3, Joe Varney currently at the top of the heap in the 911 over the BMW M3s, which are playing a little catch-up at this moment. They had led early on. We'll take a break and come back with more. We're at Sebring. It's the Superflo 12 Hours on ESPN. On a warm and sunny day at Sebring, James Weaver continues to set a torrid pace as he leads the Exxon Superflo 12 Hours. This is not good. We have problems for the GTS2 cars that is parked in the mud, and will now manage to get things back underway. That is the
that could create some.
See if we can figure out what happened here.
This could create some problems for some other guys down at the hairpin there, because we've got a replay here. And it looks like he just kind of lost it under braking. Kind of looks like he was half thinking of going for that position. Maybe he had a braking problem. Those guys in front of him are pretty lucky, but you can see he's made an awful mess of the hairpin there.
Indecision will hurt you quicker than anything else in this game. I'm not sure whether it was Josephina, John Kohler, Gary Smith, Matt Turner, or Nick Longy who was at the controls at the time, but having splattered the apex of the hairpin with mud, we have this full course yellow. That'll give me a quick opportunity to do some house cleaning. I said Jim Pace. It was Will Pace, Jim's brother, driving the car that is second in GTS2. It's easy to get the Pace boys confused because they are the only brothers ever to win 2 different classes in 2 different cars on the same day at Sebring.
Now this full course yellow, good opportunity. You can see Wayne Taylor has come into the pits here instantly as soon as that full course yellow came out. So good opportunity for these guys to get in and get some fuel and tires. You can see Wayne is going to stay in the car, so he is going to just settle in there and do 3, maybe 4 stints.
The 4th place Dyson car is also in. Elliott Forbes Robinson has brought number 20 to pit road. Part of the reason for the full course yellow, I guess, is the 35 car, which you can see further back up pit road, is pretty significantly damaged. That is McDill, who was 4th in class in the Chevy Camaro. He beat it up a little out there. So combination of those 2 factors leading to the full course yellow. Here's the Daytona winner preparing to pull back out. Driver change there. I think that'll still be Elliott Forbes Robinson as he follows the defending champion in this race, Wayne Taylor, back out onto the legendary old Sebring race course. We're under yellow. Time to run a commercial. I do sports car racing for fun. Stock cars are my daytime job. Trans-South Financial 400 is next week. We're going to Darlington. The lady in black with an all-new look. The race is at 12:30. That means we'll be on the air with NASCAR today at noon. I expect you to be here. We will take attendance. Meanwhile, we're at Sebring for the 12 hours. We're going to be here all the way to the fall of the checkered flag just past 10:30 tonight. We'll have the complete update for you on ESPN2. So check out the stock cars next weekend. This weekend, it's all about sports car racing. The Exxon Superflo 12 hours under the new banner of Professional Sports Car Racing. The name announced this weekend, and it's a name that bears a great deal of significance about the future of the series, and we talked to some of the principals about that new name.
I think the name says what we are, sports car racing, professional sports car racing. We're all professionals out here. Sports cars is our history, goes back to the 1923 Le Mans. So we think professional sports car racing says it all.
In the past, being in IMSA for 7-8 years, one of the hardest things was to do was when anybody asks you, what series do you race in, and you say IMSA, nobody knows what the hell it means. So I think with sports cars, people can at least identify with it. I'm not sure it's the best name, but I certainly think it's a big improvement, and it says exactly what we're doing.
The amount of research we did to reach the logo and the mark that we have, and the name and how we position it that we did, it far exceeds anything I've done in racing so far.
Yeah, I have mixed emotions. I, started my career and it was called IMSA. I've been doing it for over 25 years. But in reality, when you look at long range, I think this new group wants a name change. They want their own identity, and from that standpoint, I think it's probably a good idea.
It's like what Bill France said, and even Pete Rozelle, who built the NFL. We think that if we invest in sports car, we can raise it to a property that's equal to the other professional sports properties around the United States and in the world, for that matter.
I think it's going to be good. I think Andy's got a lot of enthusiasm. He's got a lot of ideas for the series, and I think that's getting a lot of people reinterested in it. And if that's what it's going to take, if it's going to take that to motivate them, fine. As long as we've got, I think, one of the best road racing series in America, and I'm speaking from a guy that's pretty new here. So in talking with some of the guys who've been around here a long time, they seem to feel that that's what this is, and they'd like to see it cultivated, and I think Andy wants to do that.
All right, thanks, Coach. Let's check out the leader. I understand he is on pit road, and we'll go to one of our erstwhile pit reporters.
Well, guys, he just left pit lane. That's how quick these guys were. James Weaver gave way to Andy Wallace. He's back out on course, so we'll give him a chance to debrief, and I'll try and get a little bit of interview with him.
Now we're going to seize that opportunity. We talked about the heavy hitters who now run professional sports car racing. This guy was a hard hitter through 4 Super Bowls. Ronnie Lott, welcome to Sebring. Now you got to explain to me why a football great is a member of the board of directors of this sports car organization.
Well, I think one of the things that Andy is trying to provide, he's trying to provide some leadership, and I think also what he's trying to provide is another way of trying to get people involved in this sport. And I think one of the things that it starts with young people, and my involvement with young people and trying to get minority kids, and hopefully we can develop a new Tiger Woods in this event.
Education is a big thing for you. I mean, before you came to this deal, that was an important part of your life, and so now you're going to just kind of spread the message in a new realm. What about the interest in racing? Where did that spring from?
And I think it springs from the fact that being around Joe Montana, talking with him over the past couple of weeks, asking him questions on why he was involved in racing, and also too, you find that it is a team. Yes, Andy is part of his team, and they're doing a great job today. But when you think of racing, it's so many other aspects to racing that I'm learning about today, as well as I found a lot of situations where you will see young women involved in racing. So for me, I think it's a lot of ways that we can involve people, young people especially, and if I can provide something for Andy and allow him to make people see that they got a nice sports car, professional sports car racing venue, heck, why not do it?
Peyton did some driving. Gibbs owns a team. How long is it going to be before we get you behind the wheel of one of these things?
No.
I think that's a
no, and I think the reason why is that when you look at Andy and what he's trying to provide, I'm just another component, and the component is this, trying to see if we can get young people more involved in this. I saw a lot of young kids walking around today, and I said, well, why are you here? So, well, my dad brought me. Well, we're going to try to get them involved in the spin experience next year, which is something that's going to be exciting, kind of like the punt, pass, and kick situation. And I think we're going to bring it here, and it will be exciting next year.
Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
That's Ronnie Lott, 4 times in the Super Bowl over there in the NFL. Meanwhile, we are in the big leagues of sports car racing, checking out the action. Hey, how about that Tiger? We'll be right back. The full course yellow continues here at Sebring. We've got a significant amount of mud that has been spread across the inside the apex of the horseshoe, and track cleanup is continuing there. We also had the incident involving the number 35 Chevy Camaro of Robert McDill, which will quickly drop it off the leaderboard for the GTS 3 division. Marty, meanwhile, has talked to the guy who just climbed out of the lead car. Let's get the scoop.
Well, we're with James Weaver, and I have to ask you right off the bat what was going on in lap number 1 with the number 3 Ferrari.
Well, we were both racing hard, and I went around the outside and onto the back straight, and as he was sliding out across the track, I think we both misjudged it slightly, me more so than him, and we made a little bit of contact.
Now, what did you tell me during the commercial? Come on.
I did a slightly embarrassing bumping into the car owned by the series owner, but I'm sure you'll get over it.
Now, as far as the lap time, Pat Smith said that you were real comfortable with the car and that you could even go quicker. Well, Pat Smith said you were real comfortable with the lap times, but you could even go quicker if you had to.
Yeah, we were running about 300 revs less than we can, just stroking along. And we wanted to get in front of the start and take the fight to the Ferraris, but they seemed to disappear.
Well, James, I know it's lunchtime. I know you want something to eat. And guys, this is what happens to me when I work hard down in pit lane. You get the air conditioning up there, but Steve Hartley, look at this. This is, and you know how I get, you know how I get all this? This is how it is. Steve, this is your one moment.
Hi, Mom.
That's it. That's all it took, and I got all this chow. Eat your hearts out.
I'm done feeling sorry for you, man.
Steve used to change my right rear tire when I raced for Nissan, and he was on our pit crew, and now he's moved into something a little more, you know, what's the word? A little more upmarket there, cooking food and running the hospitality.
I want you to take a good look at this joint because it's going to be changing a whole lot. Weaver mentioned that the owners of the series also own this racetrack. Sebring is a racing landmark unique in the sports car world, and one thing that makes it special is the fact that it hasn't changed all that much in 45 years.
I tell you, the new owners are fantastic people, because in the past we had to kind of be really concerned about the money, you know, where it came from and how we spent it. But we've already spent $50,000 just putting one little extra lane on the back here in the paddock, so the race cars can get down through here without hitting people. And of course we've redone the tire walls and all the guardrail around here, and we've really made a much safer course for one thing, and of course it looks a heck of a lot better also.
And there are bigger changes on the way. Elimination of that primitive paddock, state-of-the-art Formula One style garages among the upgrades on the drawing board.
Our plans are to make this facility into a truly world-class facility, not just from its history and not just from the quality of the racing we do, but as a facility itself. And that's going to be a major construction. That's going to be, you know, some new restrooms and some new press facilities and what you'd expect to see us reach world-class level.
Another Sebring signature, the choppy racing surface. So let's improve that. Let's get rid of those bumps. Well, maybe not all the bumps.
The facilities need to be upgraded a bit here, but they've been doing that gradually, and I think they're going to accelerate that a bit. The track is still very bumpy, and actually, in truth, I hope that they don't completely take all the bumps out, because it just wouldn't be the same. But there are a couple places where you wouldn't mind it. The first lap that you take around here in practice is the whole way around you go, ow, no, oh, ouch. Just because the car just gets beaten up, and you really have to remember where all the really bad bumps are. But I think it'll be a big improvement with the new group owning it.
So much of Sebring's appeal is its history, its past, but I think it is very apparent that the future is pretty bright for this place as well. I hope there's a green flag in our future. We'll be right back. We're back at Sebring. Big crowd gathered on a lovely day. It rained all day yesterday, but the forecast was good, and the people started pouring in last night as they always do. Actually, the people started pouring in a week ago, because that is one of the Sebring traditions. Last year, the first spectator in line for the 12 Hours of Sebring got here, wait for it, 8 days before the race. And that's not even the record. 1974, the alleged fuel crisis, they didn't even run the race. 2,000 people showed up just for the party. Sebring is a party kind of place. And along about 9, 10 o'clock tonight, it will be seriously wild in the infield. Right now, it's going to get wild on the racetrack. We are back to green. And to the front goes the defending champion.
Now, IMSA has now changed its yellow flag procedures. It used to be that you could actually get waved past the pace car, and if the leader pit, they would pick up the next leader. But they don't do that anymore. Once they've got the field set, nothing changes if you pit.
There was a long yellow for a lot of debris on the racetrack, kicked up in a spin at the hairpin, but now we're back underway, back at speed. As you watch car number 4 moving out to the lead. This is the team car to the Danka Toshiba defending champion here, and I misspoke at the top. This is the Eduardo Divos, Jim Pace, and Barry Watto entry that has gone out front. Now we've got the car that lost all the bodywork. Remember that earlier? Car number 60 sent the plastic flying. Apparently that isn't the end of the problem for the Ford Keeler K2, as David Kopf, Owen Trinkler, Jeff Ward, and Robert Quintanilla have now stopped on the course. Not all 4 of them. One of those 4 driving the automobile. One of the difficulties at Sebring is keeping track of who is in the car at any given moment.
And that car, I'm sorry, David. That car is on the front straightaway right now, and that's a bit of an awkward place to retrieve that car from. So we'll see what happens as Wayne Taylor's on the back straight here, and he's heading into the last corner. He'll come out onto that front straightaway, and we'll see if they've retrieved that car. I don't think they're going to want to leave it there. A lot of traffic damage going on there.
And if it appeared we were wobbling around just a little bit there on the green, you're exactly right. We now have it sorted out. It is official. The number 1 car is back on top of the leaderboard, and this is the second place Ferrari, now being driven by Herman. So here is your lead car, the team of Taylor, Sharp, and Van de Poel. We need to talk about Van de Poel. Belgium has the opportunity here today to make history and become the only driver since Olivier Jean-Billon to win 3 in a row.
And we definitely have a little bit of confusion here on the scoring, because this car now is being shown in 3rd place.
And a lap down.
And a lap down. So we will have to let this sort itself out over the next couple of laps and see where we are. We're getting a little bit confused here by, I mentioned as we went back to green, the new IMSA yellow flag procedure, and we're getting a little bit confused by that.
Here's the interval back to the 3 car. We know definitively that number 1 either is or is not leading the race. We also know that this is one of the quickest car out here. He is now being shown as the leader, the latest division of the electronic scoring system. And bear in mind, if you will, the difficulty of scoring 60 cars over 12 laps. It's all done electronically, and every once in a while the computer hiccups a little and says, I'm just going to keep you all in suspense. For the moment, the computer is telling us that the number 3 car has moved back to the front. This was the pole-sitting automobile. Yannick Dalvis set the track record with it at an on-course collision, but is now back at the top of the heat. We'll take a break. Exclusive coverage of the Superflo 12 Hours of Sebring has been brought to you by Exxon Superflo Motor Oil. Provides protection that's fast, protection that lasts. And by Virgin Interactive. Get the ultimate in driving games from official sports car GT sponsor, Virgin Interactive. And by Suzuki. Your Suzuki motorcycle and ATV dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. Yes, you heard the announcer correctly. Has been brought to you by. That means we are almost to the end of our ESPN Classic coverage of the first couple of hours of the 12 Hours of Sebring. We hope you have the news, because at the bottom of the hour, we're going to hop networks. We're going to ESPN2, and we're going to rock and roll right on down to 3:30 with our continuing coverage of this terrific motorsports event. One of my all-time favorites is the 12 Hour. Riding along here on board the Ferrari. We now have a report that the Ford-powered Panos, the pole-sitting car in GTS1, has returned to the racetrack after an intermittent electrical problem, and just like that, we go on board with it. Doc Bundy started the car, and I believe is still at the wheel. He hadn't done much work yet today, but sitting in the pits all day.
No, and you heard Doc in the opening of the show said that the car was quick, and I spoke to a couple of the guys running the Oldsmobile Auroras, and Joe Pezza said this car came by him like he was standing still. And that's in one of the Auroras, which is obviously a very quick car in this class. So they've got some speed in this car. They're going to need to work on reliability before they take it to Le Mans.
Well, Doc's got a pretty piece there. That is a very, very nice looking race. His hands full. They're getting into the right-hander. Bundy, very experienced in this kind of competition. Extended test session for the car, they said, and now they're doing what they want to do. They get it out there, run it at race speed, try to break it, see where the problems are, see where the weak links are in a brand new automobile. GTS1 leader, meanwhile, that continues to be the number 55. I'll double check that, because it would be number 11. Ninth spot inside the top 10. GTS2 leader is next in line on the overall leaderboard. That would be the Ford Celine of Cobb, Rizzo, and Andrews.
Yeah, the team car to the 65 car that the Aurora is about to go around here. There are two of those Celine Mustangs as there are 2 of the Oldsmobile Auroras, and each one of them is leading their class.
Pretty good performance for the production-based automobiles to have the GTS 1 liter and GTS 2 liter inside the top 10 here in the early running in Sebring. But remember, it is a long, long way to the checkered flag. Race started approximately 10:40 a.m. and thus will conclude about 10:40 p.m. And we'll be rejoining you at 10:30 tonight Eastern Time on ESPN Classic to bring you the recap of what happened throughout the race, including those long hours of darkness, and also, most importantly, to meet the winner. Here's a GTS 2 liter.
And I think you can watch this car and you can see that it's working well. It looks good over the bumps. It seems to put the power down very well. You know, even watching the Ferrari WSC cars, they don't look that good over the bumps. They're a bit of a handful. And sometimes these production-based cars, you see that car's dragging something underneath it. You can see on that long shot, something caught under that car.
Now we'll share the driving responsibilities here today with Rob Rizzo. Meanwhile, here's your GTS 3 liter. This is a new Porsche 911 Cup RSR. It's got the multi-link rear suspension that they say is good for a couple of seconds a lap, and has served the car very well here today. They are 15th overall, leading their class. Ossie and Marty have done about as many laps in Sebring, I think, as anybody in the race here today. They've raced the little cars for a lot of years. They know every bump into place. And having a good run here, 15th overall.
And it's interesting, you know, we talk about the bumps here. A lot of this infield section is new and has been repaved over the years. This section here going down to the hairpin was widened a few years ago. It used to be very, very narrow. It was widened, it was paved. They put concrete patches in at the apexes here, which you'll see is on the concrete there now. Where the grip, I might add, is not as good. It's frustrating as a driver because the car usually understeers.
He had the door open. What's that about?
Maybe he's headed for the drive-thru. I don't know.
I thought my eyes had deceived me, and then I hear in my ear, why is he closing the door? Well, I don't know the answer to that. It's better than having the door open, obviously. We're going to take a commercial break here in a minute. We have reviewed the leaders in all the classes as we head for the conclusion of our classic coverage here. Here's how they stack up at GTS 3. In 1965, Jim Hall, ever the innovator, brought the unique Chaparral to Sebring for one of the most memorable races of all time. He had an early battle with the Ford-powered Lotus of Dan Gurney, and then an even bigger battle with Mother Nature. This was the year of the most torrential downpour in the history of the race. The cars powered on through the storm, the rain oftentimes running board deep. Hap Sharp co-driving parked the Chaparral for a time, but then pressed on through the night. And in the end, Mother Nature could not stop Jim Hall, Hap Sharp, and the winning Chaparral. Oh, I love that old stuff from Sebring. Glory Days series on ESPN covers a lot of the early Sebring races, and there were some great ones with all the legendary drivers. Is Damas still in that car? Have we been able to determine that? Damas was the pole sitter in this number 3 Ferrari and has cut the quickest lap of the race thus far, I believe, at a 154.056.
And it looks like Stefan Johansson is in there now. That looks like Stefan's helmet. So he is now in the car, but that car is leading by about 12 seconds over the 16 car. So these are the 2 cars that we figured would swap it back and forth. And James Weaver said we want to take it to the Ferraris and run hard, and that's what each of these teams is doing.
And, of course, they have Fermin Velez still waiting to drive the number 3. He was so fast at Daytona. The guy's about 4 feet tall or a hard 8 feet wide. He just drove stint after stint after stint at Daytona, trying to hold off the Ford-powered Riley and Scott. Now, Bill Adam is still out there at war. Now, they've had difficulty in the car that won the championship and won this race last year. Dare I talk to Bill? Under green flag racing? Oh, what the heck, they give me a radio. I'm going to give it a try. Bill Adam, I understand you're willing to talk to us under green out there, buddy. You had some difficulties early. What's the strategy now? Yeah, well, that worked pretty well. Bill Adam, Dave Despain, ESPN. Do you hear me?
I do, David.
You look like you're busy. We're seeing you on the onboard. I appreciate your talking to us under green. Having had the mechanical difficulty, what are you going to try to do now for the remaining 10 hours? Well, he's either thinking about it or he didn't hear me.
Kind of like rush hour on Biscayne Boulevard in Miami.
Yeah, he's definitely involved in a little battle there. I'm not sure this is the best time. Best time to talk to him.
I think we've established that we have tremendous technology and that Adam has his hands full right
Well,
here.
he's got cars in front, cars behind, and you can see he could barely get his hand off the wheel to push the talk button. Maybe we can talk to him when he gets back out onto the back straightaway, where he's not having to shift and turn quite as much. It might be a better time to talk to him.
This, of course, is a very, very busy racetrack until you get out to those long straightaways. Then they have the opportunity to kind of regroup and settle yourself down. The other side of that is that those long straightaways are so very bumpy. Following Adam at work, this is the number 74 STP Porsche 911. Won the race last year, went on to win the series championship, had difficulty with a broken hose early on, took 2 stops to fix it. And there's the traffic disappearing behind him as Adam moves through that group and now has clear sailing ahead. He's been doing this a long time and a veteran broadcaster. We've shared the booth with him before. I would not care to share the cockpit. Bill, we'll try talking to you on the straightaway. Is the car fixed, and what will you try to do from here to the end?
I think we're running about 181 miles an hour down here, Dave.
That sounds like that would keep you busy.
Well, I think he thought, you know, what's the car doing down at the end of the straightaway there? It's, you know, we talked to Bill this morning in the warm-up to kind of test our technology, but once you get in the heat of the battle, you know, it's very, very difficult to carry on a conversation, and I can really empathize with Bill in this situation. Very difficult situation.
Adjustment, by the way, to her hair. Went on to win the class championship last year. This car is, of course, the defending race champion. So we're going to leave Bill Adam to his work here as he continues to try to work his way back within sight of the leaderboard after losing a lot of laps early on. To reestablish, here is the race leader. Stefan Johansson is now at the controls of the pole-sitting and track record-breaking Ferrari. And as you take a look at the overall running order, the winning team, not the winning car, but the winning team from Daytona has moved up into second spot. Hare, the defending class